Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Camille Moore with Connect, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into Creating a Brighter Future for Everyone with Tom Lambrix. Before we get started, with just a few housekeeping notes on the platform. You can type in your questions for Tom in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen or via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'd love for this to be an interactive session, so please send in questions throughout the webinar. A recorded version of this session will be available on demand on our website, where you can find additional on-demand webinars for any of you needing last-minute credit hours before CMP testing. Yes, you are able to watch our sessions on demand and still receive credits. For everyone joining us live today, this credit was approved by the EIC for 1 credit hour toward CMP IS Domain A Strategic Planning. For any of you future viewers watching this session on demand and not live, please email me directly at cmore@connectmeetings.com to receive your certificate. I'll share more information about our upcoming webinars at the end of the program, but let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank Providence Warwick for sponsoring today's session. They have provided a video to share about its destination. Here is Providence, Rhode Island.
High summer here in Rhode Island, land of perfect sun, sand, and surf.
How great does Providence look? Thank you again, Providence Warwick. Before I introduce Tom, you'll notice a map on your screen about the upcoming events for Connect in 2019. If you have any questions on any of those events, please contact my coworker, Kristen Francis, Senior Director of Sales, at kfrancis@connectmeetings.com, and I will type in her email address for everyone if they would like to contact her. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Tom Lambrix. Tom Lambrix is the Marketing Manager for BCD Meetings and Events. Previously at Grassroots, he produced and co-edited the award-winning Meetings Industry Report. Starting his career at Clarion Events, he then went on to become Head of Marketing at Earl's Court in Olympia, London, where he directed and delivered the award-winning rebranding of the venues. Tom specializes in digital and content-led marketing and maintains a keen interest in music and reading. Tom, welcome. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Camille. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for sparing your time to go through this webinar. Should take about an hour. I'm hopeful that a lot of that won't be me just talking, but you also reading and taking in what we've got to show you today. Here's the contents. just run you through it very quickly, a bit of a welcome from me and an overview of BCD, meetings and events, and then also an overview of sustainability as a concept and how it's defined in the meetings and events industry. We'll then go through the history of sustainable events, the pressures that you as meetings and events planners or sustainability advisors may be facing, and then the opportunity that we all have to essentially make the world a better place, but also give our businesses a competitive advantage through leveraging sustainable initiatives. Then I will take you through some quick ideas of where to start, and also 7 steps to develop your success in this area. And then we finish with some quick wins that you can enact today, and a few conclusions after that. The chat is permanently open, obviously, and if there are questions that I can't answer, then I will take them offline and go to people who can. So a little bit about me. There's no need for me to read that out, as Camille has kindly done it, but there you can see my face. It's a fantastic thing. Slightly more fantastic than that is my son, Freddie. Now, Freddie didn't want to have his school photo taken. He looked particularly bored. And if at any point you feel like Freddie, then do feel free to let me know on chat to speed up, speak more slowly, or whatever would make it more enjoyable for you. Freddie may also make a few guest appearances as we go through. So, BCD meetings and events. You will probably have heard of BCD Group, BCD Travel, and BCD Meetings and Events if you are in the industry. We're pretty big, specialize in meetings management, event solutions, and sports. And we do that by leveraging our specialisms in transportation, venue sourcing, creative and engagement, technology, and delegate or attendee management. We have a global presence, probably bigger in North America and Europe, but expanding quickly into Asia Pac, and have a particularly strong footprint in the United Kingdom due to a couple of recent acquisitions of some leading agencies there, one of which I was actually part of. BCD Meetings and Events pride ourselves on leading thought in a number of different areas, and there's a huge number of resources that you can download from the bcdme.com website. Recent highlights have been the Global Trends Report from 2019, and also the ongoing blogs, white papers, and articles that you can find in the Insights section of the website. We also use thought leadership to try and support people and support the world we live in. One of the initiatives that's been a great success in the UK has been the Fast Forward 15 female mentoring program. This essentially gives a step up to any women in the meetings and events industry, mentoring them and guiding them in how to advance their careers and how to break through that glass ceiling. And that's something we're particularly proud of. And then, of course, the Green White Paper, our most recent white paper, has been very warmly received by the industry. And I presented it at IMEX last year, and that's where a lot of the initial research has come from. Now, this white paper is a trigger for conversations, and really it's an ongoing piece of research, much like an album by Kanye West. His album Life of Pablo was actually put up on a streaming platform, and then he decided to keep tinkering with it and keep playing around with it, and he described it as a living, breathing, changing creative expression. I would love to call our Green White Paper a living, breathing, continually changing creative expression. It's not that high concept, but the principles are the same. We are continuing our research, and we are always looking for new inputs and new ways to push the conversations further. When I went to IMEX, I was pondering my ensuing presentation on the aeroplane, and I couldn't help but look down at what was facing me after I'd eaten all my food on this transatlantic flight, and being quite startled, even today, at how much just hard plastic was being used right there and then. as you can see here, pretty much every container there is plastic. Now, I worked out quite quickly that you've got about 2,000 to 3,000 transatlantic flights every day. There's about 400 people in every Boeing 747. So if we times 400 by 2,500, you end up with 1 million of these selections of plastic waste every single day. So the task that faces the wider world is vast, and there's a huge amount of responsibility on companies, including Virgin Atlantic, naming and shaming, but no doubt every other transatlantic aircraft operator. But there is hope. When I landed, I went to Ollie's Trolley in Washington, D.C. for a very, very nice dirty burger. It's on 12th and East Street if you're ever there. And I was actually quite heartened by something that I don't think was a conscious attempt to provide sustainable packaging, but actually, if you look here, apart from the Coke container, that is all very sustainable packaging. So, you know, it's not hard to make the switch, and I think a lot of companies will be making that switch as we go forward into the future. So, our first question would be, for me, what one word do you associate with sustainability? Now, this is the response we got from IMEX. I didn't actually intend to show you that particular slide, but never mind. Have a think. Think of the words that first come to you and share them with us on the chat. You know, as we go through the presentation, just put words out there that you associate with sustainability. And then by the end of the presentation, hopefully we'll have changed the perception slightly. So if we go to an overview now, this is where really I'm going to explain what sustainability means. How has it changed over the years? And what's the BCD approach? So corporate social responsibility is something we're very familiar with in businesses. Sustainability possibly less so. Now, the white paper defines a distinct difference between these two terms. CSR generally is a quick win, if we're being slightly cynical. It's there to tick boxes, it's slightly short term, it's how did we do, here's a few little things we can do, aren't we doing wonderfully well? Sustainability is a long-term investment in your business strategy. This is actually making it part and parcel of your everyday work and your everyday approach to business and to the wider communities that you serve. Now, you don't need to worry about noting any of this because obviously the handout has pretty much everything apart from the photos of Freddie. But if we define sustainability, it's essentially meeting the needs of the present without compromising on the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Another definition that we found was the ethical management of our environmental, social and financial responsibilities to ensure our ongoing business success without limiting options for future generations. All in all, that summarizes what sustainability really means. It goes beyond recycling. It goes beyond charity work. It just essentially tries to touch every element of the business. So, BCD's approach. BCD Group focuses on 3 pillars for their sustainability approach. A better workplace, a better world, and better business. By combining these 3, we give ourselves a template on which to build. Now, the sustainable events have evolved over the last few years. Initially, you end up at stage 1, green meetings. Again, this is a bit like CSR. It's probably been practiced for the last 10 to 15 years, where really it's just about a few bits of efficiency, a bit of cost saving, a bit of convenience. So getting rid of plastic water bottles, having a mobile event app to cut paper use, all very worthwhile, but not necessarily reaching that upper tier. Then a company may move, or an event may move into a sort of CSR approach where they're actually looking to use it as a way of building their brand and enhancing the brand experience. an example of that would be an event volunteer project, or helping out with local schools or disaster relief. Stage 3 is sustainability systems. This is essentially where you have a monitoring and reporting program in place so that you can actually provide hard evidence that sustainability is percolating through every area of your business, that you are achieving operational efficiency, that you are integrating these practices into your supply chains, through tenders, through contracts, and really making this an absolute part of your DNA. So, our first poll. Now, for these polls, all you have to do is click the radio button in the slide. It looks like the kind of thing that wouldn't actually work if you clicked it, but please do. Do you actually, as a meetings events professional, or any other professional for that matter, do you add a sustainable element to your events? So if you'd like to click away, and we will see the polling results come up live, I believe. So if you want a real thrill, click while it's showing. There we go. And so we're seeing a bit of a change there. This is not, well, it was quite nice to see 70% saying yes. It's surprising how few people still do add any sustainable element to their events for whatever reason. It may be that it's personal, but it also may be that it's company driven. Thankfully, a lot of you are also not saying that you don't know, which is where a lot of people tend to absolve themselves of responsibility. So, judging by the number of people we've got logged in watching and the number of people who are voting, I'd say there's a few more of you out there who have either gone to make a coffee or don't know and haven't been honest with us, or just would rather not answer the poll. I'll give you another couple of seconds just to see if we can bump up those numbers anymore. But I think we've seen a pattern generally. 2/3 do, and about 1/3 don't. So if I move on to the results we got when we asked the same question in our research for the Green White Paper, you'll see that it was actually a slightly worse pattern. Now, a similar thing happened at IMEX, where the audience were far more positive with the amount of sustainable elements that they added to their event. And I put this down to the fact that the IMEX attendees, all of you out there, are interested in this subject. Whereas we were polling the meetings and events world, it was far less selective. It was more about getting a very, very broad output. So that's why I see that we have a slightly heavier weighting towards those who don't, and a lot that don't know, because not everyone in the meetings and events industry actually has a clue about whether they add sustainable initiatives. So we're heading in the right direction. The fact that both you and the IMEX audience are suggesting that the balance has shifted is positive, and also the fact that almost the majority in our poll for our white paper said that they were, but there is still a lot of work to do. There are a number of pressures that face meetings and events professionals today in the arena of sustainability. And the responsibility for action is there to reduce negative impacts from our meetings and events, and to create successful, resilient events that achieve objectives and withstand risks. Pressures can include a number of factors. I'm going to focus on the most important ones here. There's a lot more depth in the white paper itself, but climate change, it's an obvious one. But you may not know that a conference participant generates 176 kilos of carbon emissions a day. What does this actually mean? Well, it means that we need to be more aware of the greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, hotel use, and so on. Water conservation. Again, water footprint of a conference program is startlingly high. What does this actually mean? Well, the direct use from venues and hotels, the amount of water it ironically takes to make bottled water, and even your choice of meat, as my colleague John Kelly touched on in an interview recently. He pointed out that actually it takes a huge amount of water to serve beef, whereas if you choose chicken, you're actually using far less water in the production process. Waste disposal, huge amount of waste is generated every day by every conference participant, even if you are using apps instead of brochures. What is affecting this? Well, obviously event materials and the recoverable waste that could be contaminated. I myself know that my downstairs neighbour certainly contaminates a lot of her recycling, so I've ended up writing no food on the recycling bin. I'm hoping for the best. The event materials such as Foamex and carpet and vinyl, there is a huge potential there and a huge number of products that are actually recyclable. When I was working at Olympia London, we used to charge event organisers for anything that went to landfill. That's a very effective way for venues to push the sustainability initiative when it comes to waste disposal. Human rights. As I said before, sustainability is more than recycling, and it's about how we affect our communities. Why do we bother about human rights? Well, basic decency for a start, especially given that women earn 22% less than men, according to a PCMA survey. I still find that absolutely gobsmacking. 80% of M&E professionals have also reported harassment on the job. It's fundamentally not acceptable, but what are the things you need to look out for? Well, fairness, harassment itself, even human trafficking, inclusion and privacy. Health and safety, highly risky business we work in. I've heard horrible stories about people, riggers working in Earl's Court, when it was, far less, shall we say, there were far less health and safety measures in place. So it's not just the general health and safety, but you've got to be aware of severe weather, civil unrest, even terrorism. By really taking the lead on these issues, then hopefully you can avoid terrifying situations such as Freddie and his friends attacking you at a school fair. So we have a huge opportunity, number of pressures, number of challenges, but a huge opportunity to make the world a better place. How can we do that? Well, we can try and reduce harm, increase resilience, demonstrate the value of human connections. And do that through sharing knowledge, promoting innovation, and strengthening relationships. So, primarily, you need to build a business case. It's very easy to say that, this is all a wonderful thing to do, but actually, the business will want you to provide a hard and fast evidence that this is worthwhile. So take a perspective of for example, a sales director or someone who maybe in a cliched way isn't particularly bothered with sustainability. Take their angle. Can sustainability improve our relationships with our employees, our clients, and our customers? Does it provide brand value or a competitive advantage? Can it reduce costs by increasing efficiency and supporting innovation? That last one will always ring well in a business, especially when you're talking to finance. And finally, does it provide new sources of revenue, such as sponsorship or new products and services? You could think that's slightly cynical, but actually, if you can get sponsorship for the initiatives that you're pioneering, then everyone wins. And yes, of course, reducing risk and the associated costs. So, who would you say is actually responsible for producing sustainable events? We've got 5 options for you there. You might say that there should be others, but I'd encourage you to now vote, clicking your radio buttons, as to who you think is actually responsible for producing sustainable events. These viewpoints will obviously differ depending on what your background is. I'd imagine that most corporate event planners would put it on the agency, and most agencies would put it on the venue. But it's still very interesting to see. And there we go. I was about to say senior management get away with it again, but they don't. But the individual event planner, from the results I'm seeing here, bears a huge amount of responsibility. I guess that's inevitable, really. You know, they are the linchpin of the whole event. But at the same time, it shouldn't be underestimated that, you know, venues particularly should be pushing this, as they provide a lot of the services and the third-party suppliers that contribute to sustainable, the negative side of sustainability. But I think there we go. That's hard and fast proof that it's the individual event planner. So, for a bit of context, what did our white paper research say? They actually put a huge, or not huge, but a bit of a broader spread, and actually putting the event planner down at 10%. Suppliers, venues, event agencies, and senior management were deemed to take more responsibility. Now, this could be that the audience we were surveying were probably the majority of them were meetings and events planners. So they're looking to not pass the buck, but share the responsibility. And they're possibly more aware of the impact that those other stakeholders have. So, really, it's an easy answer. Everyone has a role in sustainability. Organisers, suppliers, participants, even the attendees. And it may seem like sometimes you can't actually make a difference, but really, quite the opposite is true. And there's a number of opportunities and a number of ways in which you can either engage with internal stakeholders or engage with your attendees or engage with your suppliers in order to make positive change. I'm going to whip through quite a few here. These are just ideas. Don't be fazed by them. There's a number of things, obviously, that you might not be in control of. And furthermore, all of this is downloadable, so you can turn it into a sort of action pack. But the experience design itself, you know, thinking about actually at the point of conception, what can we actually do to make this event really have an impact, and a positive impact, on the world that surrounds us. The destination itself, you know, pretty easy really, in that there are a number of things that you know can impact, but also that there are a number of opportunities there and a number of ideas. Wellness guides, for example, dine-arounds, gifts from Indigenous artists, things that you might not have necessarily thought of, that you might like to explore, and also that might really engage with your attendees. The exhibitors themselves, give them the tips, help them, give them the alternatives, push for suppliers to provide alternatives, and you know, possibly have donation programs, all that promotional material, pencils. If you haven't given them away, give them to a local school. Catering, try local field-grown in-season produce. It might be a little bit more expensive, but the trade-off is good. Look to eliminate single-service dishware, obviously, and try and use compostable disposables. And fair trade tea and coffee is a pretty easy, quick win, and it should be getting a lot cheaper. Alternatively, catch your own crabs, like Freddie and I did the other day. He enjoyed it. We didn't eat them, I have to admit. Travel. I know it makes most meetings and events professionals squirm, but do offer that option to attend remotely. You yourselves are at the moment. I'd like to think you're getting as much, if not more, out of the experience as you would be if you were seeing me in person. Try to get, you know, transport accessible venues and hotels. Vegas, for example, is a very popular destination for meetings and events, but to get anywhere, it seems to me, as a naive Brit, that you just get in a car and you have to get a cab. Why can't, you know, we have more venues that are closer connected to hotels, or the operation of the event is thought about more to make things more accessible and make transport less of a burden. Offer carbon offset opportunities, obviously. Even with AV, you know, there's new technologies out there and new types of lighting that mean that you don't actually have to draw as much power as you are. And the same with the AV when it's not in use. Once it's tested, put it to sleep, and then switch it on only for that event. I've been at events and even in hotels where, you know, lights are just left on for the sake of it. It's not necessary. And see if there's ways of, you know, reusing staging and decor and even production equipment. A lot of agencies already do. The venue itself, look for certifications, find out if it's purchasing clean energy. It should already have a recycling program. The branding, one of my favorite tips is take the date off everything. There is no need to put the date on any branded merchandise. It doesn't add to your engagement with the attendee, and if anything, it dates it. So take the dates off, and then you can reuse them whenever you wish. Minimize the use of adhesives, and look for promotional products from social enterprises. A number of opportunities out there for those. And then on site, try and use badge systems that don't use disposable plastic, recycle lanyards, use event apps. So already here we can see there's a huge number of ideas that have just come out of 3 slides, 90% of which most events are probably not doing. And that provides us with somewhere nice to start. However, where you're going to start with dealing with the business is a different matter. So, as I said before, what are the most important issues? This is what you've really got to do if you're going to start getting this stuff moving forwards, is think about what are the things that are going to have the most effective change and have the most effective, impact on your business. So, primarily, what do organizers, customers, and event participants care about? Think about that. Think about, is the meeting or event vulnerable to criticism? Think about what type of event, what the type of event dictates the unique issues. The purpose of the gathering, or the host, the organization might spotlight these. So, what is most important to your organization? There's a number of options here. It's worth reading through them, so I will. Sustainability can provide a number of benefits, but think about which one is actually most important. Competitive edge, differentiating yourself from competitors. Legal compliance, legal responsibilities, that can be very serious for a lot of people. Just being a responsible corporate citizen, or your corporate reputation, or cost and resource savings. All of these are obviously benefits, but if you can sort of take on what is quite a lot of information there, think about which is the one that, you know, your knee-jerk says, that's the one that's going to turn on the people that I'm dealing with. That's the one that's going to make a difference with our business. That's the one that's really going to kickstart a sustainability drive. So we've got corporate reputation, that's proving quite popular. Cost savings always good. I do sympathise with those who might be finding it hard to actually work out which is the best answer for this. Like I say, try and go with your gut. There is no right or wrong answer necessarily. But I can see that we are seeing a bit of a swing towards the corporate reputation side and cost and resource savings. And yeah, it may be that actually in the meetings and events you do, or the businesses you work in, that you don't have to comply legally with anything. But not so many people see it as a competitive edge. This may be because of the importance of the other options. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'll give you about another 10 seconds or so. Okay, so if we move on, you'll see the results there. Generally, cost and resource saving, that is the primary benefit, or most important to your organizations. A little bit of a contrast here with our research we did for the white paper. It's funny, actually, we do seem to be getting a little bit of a swing here, but cost and resource saving, not as important. Legal compliance was deemed a big issue for a lot of the people we surveyed. Now, BCD Meetings and Events work with a huge number of financial and professional services companies, and also a number of life sciences organizations. So this could be where the legal compliance swing comes from. Responsible corporate citizen, though, is nice to see as well, and the corporate reputation. A lot of the statistics that we've provided here will also be available to download afterwards, so we should be able to draw some interesting parallels. And as I said with the rather bizarre Kanye reference, we'll be putting this back into our research, so it'll be helping to balance out any trends. So, what can be controlled? There are a number of things that you can actually take control of to push sustainable initiatives and to enforce them. One of the most effective is, are you using tenders or legally binding agreements? This is something where you can force suppliers to actually adhere to your sustainability objectives. Really helps. And also, they shouldn't really object because it's a benefit for them. And think about what makes sense to do in the short and the long term. Obviously, there's a huge amount that we can try and take on. Not all of it can be done today, tomorrow, or even in the next 2 or 3 years. So try and compartmentalize what's achievable today and what's achievable tomorrow. But most importantly, be optimistic, because actually the way the world's moving and the way that society is moving, they're on your side if you're looking to do this. And then, yeah, see if there are ways of incentivizing your stakeholders. A supplier might be in a better position to provide a sustainable product if they secure a longer term agreement. So try and give as well as take. Let's move on to what resources exist. Think about those. How will it be funded? Who's going to do the work? Sustainability doesn't always need to cost more and can present cost savings. So if it does, investigate sponsorship, budgets, registration fees, grants. These are all areas that you can slightly tweak or slightly adjust to provide funding for your sustainable initiatives. So here are 4 statements about approaches to sustainability. Which one best describes what you or your organization does? This gives us a very good barometer of where we are, as well as adding sustainable initiatives to our events. Actually, what are the companies and organizations we work in doing? So, do you have formal operating procedures that have a policy, goals, and a purchasing process? Do you have optional sustainability best practices that you encourage staff to follow? Or does the organization let the event planner determine how it will do it and not have a formal policy? And, as unfortunately a number of organizations still do you not practice sustainability in any way whatsoever? So here again, similar to the trend where earlier in the webinar we were saying that the event planner was more responsible. There's a lot of you out there who are very, very admirably taking responsibility for sustainability, or deeming it that your organization gives you the responsibility. So it's up to us to try and push ourselves up to those other areas where we have formal operating procedures, where we have best practices that we encourage other staff to follow. And really, that's what this white paper can help you do. It's all laid out there for you. And as long as you can find a way of enshrining it in your organization, the way it approaches these issues, and also possibly looking at profitable ways in which to do it, then the future is quite bright. Okay. I think we'll leave that one there. So, event planner. That's the one that the audience today has decided what their organization leverages the responsibility on. Our research also said the event planner. Finally, we have a bit of consistency. But yes, the event planners do seem to determine what's best done. slightly more in our research had formal operating procedures, which is good to hear. And yeah, not many don't practice sustainability in any way. So now we're getting to the real meat. This is where you actually get your pathway to implementing sustainability within your organization, within your meetings and events. 7 steps, simple things that will admittedly take work, but once they're done, you'll be moving forwards in a great way. Get executive buy-in. Always the hardest thing to do if you're not an executive, and obviously the one that can be slightly daunting. But by using the advice that we're giving you today, by researching this white paper, by looking at the opportunities, and by highlighting them correctly, you can ensure that your company leaders incorporate social responsibility into global business strategy. 2, create a cross-functional sustainability leadership team. Very important to engage across the organization and across departments. There will often be people who have a personal interest in this subject and therefore will be willing to be your champion. And there'll be other people who you can essentially say, right, well, we need someone, and bring them along with you on the journey. Engaging and educating employees. This can be really enjoyable because, like I say, pretty much anyone under the age of, I'm being bold here, but actually no, it could go either way, to be honest, but generally the younger generation are very switched on with this kind of stuff. They're very enthusiastic, they're very keen to get involved. So by being the advocate of sustainability within your organization, you can really engage with your staff, and they will be the ones who will help drive it forward and help support it and help push things, so that really there's this ongoing momentum that keeps things going past the point of announcing that you're doing something, but actually keeping it going throughout. Be global and local. BCD-M&E is a huge global organization, but a number of the initiatives that we actually do are on the ground, at ground level, whether that's beach cleanups or charity work or working with the homeless or ensuring that we're using sustainable suppliers. That approach means that you're having a direct effect at a local level, and that's the one that can actually be more personally rewarding. Obviously, in the position we're in, we also need to take responsibility for that global approach, but that will only come from building up at a local level. Look for industry best practices. They are out there. There is an international standard for event sustainability, ISO 2012-1, which I've always thought is a wonderful number. Really, you know, it's all there for you. It's very, very in-depth. This can be a bit of a challenge for an organization to really start getting to the point where they are adhering to these international standards. But once they have, the systems, the processes, they're in place. So from there on, it's easy. It's just going through the motions each and every year. You know what to do. It gives you that foundation that means that you can't really take a wrong turn. And yeah, 6, be realistic. It does take time and effort to implement sustainability programs. So take that phased approach from the start. You know, set yourself goals, set yourself objectives, try not to do everything at once and then get disheartened. Similarly, don't think, oh, well, we're only going to manage to do that, because actually with every step of success, more opportunity opens up. And don't reinvent the wheel. You know, there are a lot of companies out there who are already doing it. There'll be a lot of meetings and events companies who are already doing it. So refer to them, look to them, do your research, see how they've managed to implement things, look at case studies. They give you a bit of a, you know, they give you a nice piece of guidance, and really it's not that hard. A lot of it has been done before. It's just about making it less piecemeal and more concerted. So hopefully you're not as Freddie felt while he's having his photo taken. We're nearly there. Stay with me. And we'll try and crack on through the last chapter, which is taking action. So a bit similar to the 7 steps to success. Those are more at an organizational level and a long term. These actions are short-term, quick wins that you could technically turn around and do today. You could do this afternoon. Learn about a topic. Just spend 30 minutes a week, read up on it, think about how it applies to events, become that subject matter expert. That will mean that you come across far more convincingly when you're trying to leverage these initiatives internally. Add it to the agenda. It's something that just doesn't really cross people's minds day to day at the moment. But actually, if it's in there, much like everything else that you tend to diarize and put in agendas for meetings, it will trigger thought, it will trigger discussion, it will trigger progress. Look at UN Sustainability Development Goals. Work out how you can help contribute. You know, the quick and easy one that isn't necessarily a UN goal, but the impact of the seahorse with the toothpick, earbud, cotton bud in the ocean, the impact of that photo was huge. And it just meant that people started thinking about actually how they are impacting our environment. And so use those goals, use those conversation topics to brainstorm a way to address it at an event. Straws, for example, now are becoming a very quick and easy thing to just get rid of or replace with paper alternatives. Join campaigns. Think about your local environment. Think about your schools, communities. There might be things that are already going on that you can piggyback on the back of. So this is quite, this means that instead of trying to get a new initiative moving, look for other initiatives that are already happening in your industry. The meetings and events industry is a very people-focused, very caring industry that, will already have people trying to push forward and trying to achieve things. So join up, combine forces, push forward together. A sustainability happy hour for the event team. Something light-hearted. Basically, just generate those ideas and look for a way of putting a plan together. Incentives, that will always work, but just make it about pushing sustainable goals. Think of 2 or 3 suppliers that you've used, and then see if there's quick wins that you can have. So make them recycle those lanyards. Don't use plastic in your dining products or cutlery. Ask suppliers to research more sustainable options. They'll be perfectly happy to do so. And as I said before, you can quite easily tomorrow put a clause in your proposals, or in the request for proposals, saying, right, you need to use sustainable means to deliver. You might see a bit of fluctuation in price, but then possibly push them down or convince them of the long-term benefits and promise them more in return. Make a simple stop doing this. Very easy. We do it every day with our day-to-day lives. So stop using plastic cups, use paper cups. Use fairly traded coffee. We've provided a number of ideas. Get rid of those dates and locations from event branding. So simple. Just, anything we produce now just says BCD meetings and events. It's not going to say BCD meetings and events staff convention 2018. What's the point? I'll remember that I was at the staff convention in 2018. I'll have the baseball jacket, I'd love to think. So you don't need to put a date. You don't need to put a location. You don't need to age it. You need to make sure that it can be used again. Look for green travel tips on the website. Include green travel tips on your websites. Look at ways of taking public transport to and from the venue. Just simple, basic things. And then again, recycle content. If you do have to print stuff, print it on recycled paper, and then recycle that paper. Then actually, you're not really having that much of an impact. So think about ways around. If you have to do certain things that aren't necessarily initially sustainable, there might be ways of doing it. Use fun facts, use social media, and create packages for sponsorship so that way you can fund your own sustainability ideas. What organization nowadays wouldn't want to append its brand to a good, positive, sustainable initiative? You can do that. You can get that sponsorship in, and then you can fund every other sustainable initiative that you're trying to push forward. And look and see if an event has a code of conduct. And if you don't, create one, especially when it comes to human rights, harassment, and so on. Make sure that people are behaving correctly. And that includes delegates who then leave the event and then go on into the local area. Give them a code of conduct, tell them where to go, tell them where not to go, and just make sure that you're doing the right thing. So that's the 15 quick wins. Really, in summary, a single white paper cannot cover all the complex sustainability challenges meetings and events face. I think this white paper does a pretty good job of trying, and it certainly starts a lot of conversations. It's far more in-depth than this presentation, if you can believe it, and it's a great read, so I would obviously encourage you to download it immediately. And just think about the ideas. Think about what issues you care about, because if it comes from the heart, then it's always more convincing. And think about how you can act on your sustainable values every day as an event professional, and how you can measure the impact of your actions. Only through that measurement will you truly be able to show the positive effect. So that is a very critical part of the process. So now, what word would you associate with sustainability? I confess this has slightly skewed it, because obviously you can now see what the IMEX audience said. But they moved from having said, as you saw initially, green and recycling and very simple, basic, trite things, to responsibility, to engagement, cooperation, taking a far broader view on what actually sustainability means. And hopefully you guys have too. I hope it's been a lot of help. There's a link for you to download the white paper coming up. Much like the radio buttons, it is clickable. So please go ahead. You will have to fill out a form. It'll open in a new tab, so maybe leave it till after the webinar is over. That has the white paper, quick and easy to download in PDF format. If for any reason you can't click, or you just don't want to do it now, just search BCD M&E green white paper and you'll come up. And hopefully through doing that, we'll build a better place for Freddie, and he can be a happy little camper. There's my information. Again, thanks to my strange surname, all you have to do is search it and you'll find me. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to approach me. I am a marketing man, not a sustainability advisor, so if I can't answer those questions, I will pass them on to people who can. All that really leaves me to say is, if you, I can't see any major questions coming through on the chat, but if you do have any, like I say, get in touch anytime. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you today. I will now pause for a bit in case anyone does have any pressing questions, and do my best to answer those. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon.
Hi, Tom. We do have a question from Anna Laura in the chat box. She wants to know if she can share the last slide, sustainability equals responsibility, in her LinkedIn profile.
Of course. That would be, yes, I'd be honored. And that really is, you know, it's a good conclusion, that one. It does. It, you know, it's the shift from recycling to responsibility. That neatly sums it up.
Yes, well, if no one has any further questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. I would like to thank Tom so much for sharing with us today and giving us great information on how we can be sustainable in our events and in our world. After this webinar concludes, you will be directed to a short survey. If you could fill that out, that would be great for us to get some feedback to apply to our future webinars. You can learn about Connect's past and upcoming webinars on all of our websites listed on your screen now. For everyone joining us live today, the credit was approved by the EIC for 1 credit hour towards CMP IS Domain A Strategic Planning. We will email your certificate tomorrow evening, so be on the lookout for your certificate tomorrow. Again, if you're watching on demand, please email me for your certificate. It will not come to you automatically. My email address is on the screen right now. And if you have any questions, please email me at cmore@connectmeetings.com. And we hope you all will join us again on April 16th at 2 p.m. for an informative session on SMB with Connect speaker Tom Pasha. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great day.